Welcome to the Christian Atheist, where faith and reason fuse in the incarnation. Episode number 130, Chatterview with Rachael Thomas, Part 3. The Christian Atheist, we didn't start out doing interviews. It's just this year that we started doing a few. I'm kind of running out of material that I can get anybody excited over. For the most part.
Man, I get excited about.
I did some really heavy philosophical stuff in the course of it. And Jenny said, look, you're probably driving more people away than you're bringing into the house.
You're limiting your audience to just a certain group of people. And we don't want to be fluffy, but we don't want to only have, and amongst that small group of people, we'd have to get 100% of them just to have an audience, Sure. So yeah. So that was what the issue was. So how can we find, do you have papers online that people can read?
No, not really. I've done a couple videos
on YouTube.
Not on YouTube. I have them, I can put them on YouTube. I have them as just Google Drive videos because of COVID times, or international students at my school who would go home over the summer and say, Mrs. Thomas, can you send me something? Especially for kids from countries with hard lockdown policies, China. They go home, one student, I remember one time came back in September. He was a really, really bright math kid, but had gone home to China for the summer, came back in September, and he gave me this huge hug when he saw me in class. And he was not a particularly physically affectionate kid that I remembered. I said, yeah, I said, Daniel, are you okay? He said, yes, I've just been holding it in all summer. Sweet and heartbreaking at the same time, right? So I've made a bunch of videos of devotional things over Google Drive so that I could send them to kids and send them links and kind of skirt around being seen, if you will, But yeah, I could put some things on video, or I could probably send you some links of different little explanations that I've done, but nothing published or anything. Yeah, it's like you said, it is kind of hard to find an audience, but I should write some things down. And I'm sure, I keep thinking this, and you're probably thinking the same things. I'm sure there's someone really smart out there who's chronicling. Yeah. But it's hard to find. And it's
everybody's I found somebody in South Africa, Kelly Joubert.
Oh yeah, Kelly Joubert.
Yeah. But he's totally, nobody would have ever even heard of him. And he has a lot of really good.
Who's the
and Kurt Wise.
Kurt Wise.
It's just really hard to find people. I guess we're all just
well, we got to stop
shining
thinking,
like stars, isolated.
We got to stop thinking that other people are going to do it and just do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what God's calling us to.
Yeah.
I want to read one thing from what you sent us that just, when I read it, I thought, wow, that's really good. So you had just talked about Mandelbrot, and you said, and I also had a Jewish professor who was quick to point out that among academics, you have your smart people. And see, as an academic myself, I know this class, these groups that you're referring to and talking about here. You have your smart people, your really smart people, and your really, really smart people, all of whom ascribe to a human-centric worldview. And I knew an awful lot of each one of those groups. The vast majority of academics really aren't super smart, but there is a class of academics who are very smart. And when you get in with that group, it's really exciting because, things are flying and it's a lot of fun. It's very challenging. But most academics, especially in today's university, are shouldn't say low level, sort of average intellectuals. They don't have an original thought anywhere in their heads. But anyway, okay, so I'm going to continue with where you are here. You're smart people, you're really smart people, all of whom ascribe to a human-centric worldview. And then you have just your out-of-this-world brilliant folks who are, by and large, people of extreme faith. And I think that's right. The problem is nobody sees them. Why? The people that even as an atheist, oftentimes the people that I found that I could respect the most were those who held to some sort of faith in a transcendent reality, a God. And even in the intellectual history, when I look back through philosophy, we just finished reading G.K. Chesterton's Everlasting Man, which is absolutely fantastic. And he makes the point, too, that the background of humanity is filled with everyone believing. We live in a weird age in which almost no one, we're being, and I ascribe that to Hegel, who is my great nemesis. And here I go talking a lot again. I really want to hear what you have to say rather than going through what I talk about. But I ascribe it to Hegel because I think Hegel has made the explicit transition from a world that relied on a transcendent reality beyond this one, and he brought it down to immanence and said, no, everything's here. And Darwin goes from there, and it has pervaded our culture. C.S. Lewis did an essay on it called The Myth of Evolution. Or The Funeral of a Great Myth.
Funeral of a Great Myth.
Right. And he's not saying he wasn't attacking the biological theory. He was attacking the underlying worldview that exemplifies. But it plays out across our world today. We've abandoned the idea that there's something greater beyond. And the only way to do that is to shut your eyes. Mm-hmm. And you talked about something a little earlier, and then I'm going to shut up again. And it spurred in me in Romans 1, those who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. And I think it is an explicit goal to suppress it, to literally hide it. They don't want to. They don't want it getting out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's easy in this era of constant distraction and the pervasiveness of this me-centric kind of attitude. We have fostered that. We have facilitated it. Everything from social media to even the academic programs that people come up with in high schools and colleges, where it's all about you. It is really all about you. Everything in this world is just revolves around you. We kind of allow students at a very formative age to develop this idea and make it their own. And it's, man, once you've got a hold of that, like, whew, that would be hard to let go, right? Yeah. It's like the greatest distraction.
We've been talking to each other about it, like education. When you step back from it, like I homeschooled my kids. And so we weren't in the education system, but like you're saying, when I went back into it now, because we sent, the last two have been going to school. Yeah. So it was like, what is this? What's going on? What's going on? It was a, awakening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would love to have you and Jenny sit down and talk, because I think she would just be
I'm hungry for what you're talking about.
Well, right.
And numbers and God, and knowing God through all of this stuff. Holy cow. I've been a Christian since 1890, and it's the same thing going, you go to church and it's the same message. I've heard the same sermon in every single way you could hear it. And it's like, there's God. And then I kind of, when we got together, I was kind of on my way out and he was coming back, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's just as much as when I wasn't a Christian, I couldn't find a reason for it or a meaning for it. And then we kind of walked away from the church we've been away for a while. And now there's so much stuff I'm learning, but I have to dig for it like crazy trying to find it. You can't find it. And then you come.
Yeah, it's just the right time.
And you have all this amazing stuff that it's like, holy God, I realized that. I knew there was something in the book of Numbers and in the building of the temple and the instruction. I know there's something in there. I just can't find what it is.
All scripture is life, is God breathed.
Every
all
single
of it is,
thing.
Every word is worthwhile. And and I struggle to find the worthwhile in some other parts, but it's all, it will all hit each one of us differently. And isn't it amazing that we're all made differently and can see those different things and appreciate them differently? But I experience the same struggles that you're talking about too.
Do you struggle with reading the New Testament, like the
I do. I do. And some of it, sometimes students will ask me, what's your favorite book in the Bible? And I'll start listening. I'm like, oh, well, I love Daniel. Daniel's just the best. But, I also love the Minor Prophets. Amos is really amazing, and blah, blah, blah. And I list all these things, and they're like, have you read anything after Matthew?
That's so
yes, when I have to.
Yeah, exactly. Revelation's fantastic. It's hard for me a little bit now as a parent. So I've got this daughter, right, who you met. She is indeed very accomplished, and she's not even you wouldn't believe me if I told you her SAT scores. She's not just a great runner and a great French horn player and everything else. She's super bright. But she's grown up in the church the whole time. And how do you balance that? Like, I feel like part of the reason that I am so on fire for the Bible and authentic Christianity is because I discovered it as an adult, so how do I cultivate that kind of fire in my child and allow her to experience that, but also have developed, have taken the time to deliberately develop. Right. So it's tricky, and she's having a tough time. She's not fired up about church. Like, she loves Jesus. I do not doubt that she is right with God in her heart, and she reads the Bible, and she's a very motivated intellectual. But she struggles with going to church and the same thing, right? Like, it's the same thing every week, Mom. And then the guy thinks that we're falling asleep, so he just says the same words louder so that I wake up more. And she's looking for, I asked her one time, I was like, well, what would your ideal church be? I'll help you go look for a church. We can find a church that's going to serve you. But what would your ideal church be? And she starts describing this place where people are still amazed by salvation and God's grace, but they're also not babies in their biblical understanding. And the music is awesome and all points to God, but it's not just the same old stuff that you've always heard, and the this and the that. And I'm like, oh, honey, if you find that place, please let me know. I thought maybe she was going to say, I want to go to a church where they're in jeans instead of they get dressed up. But no, it was like she had very legitimate things that she was interested in. And I hope she finds it. I hope wherever she goes, wherever her path takes it, she finds a place that will check off enough boxes for her to be in a committed faith community, because that's a really big part of Christianity. I think it is a part that we can't ignore, but it's hard to find something in that sweet spot that's not like just the come to Jesus message every single week. I mean, we need those, and we need those churches, and they serve a purpose, and that's great. But I don't need to hear about how I can be saved one more time. I got it. Right. But we also don't need just somebody who's gonna blah, 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 and the fire and brimstone and whatever, like sinners in the hand of an angry God. Well, there's something in between.
And I just read a verse. I was reminded of a verse this week in Hebrews. It says, therefore let us leave the elementary doctrine of Christ and go on to maturity, not laying again a foundation of repentance from dead works and of faith toward God. And it, I was like, that's what I'm looking for. I want to move on from the doctrine, the doctrine of salvation.
I, as having come out of atheism, I remember the charges that I tried to make stick for so long, that Christians are irrational. And why does that ever stand? How can that ever stand? Christianity, or let's start with theism, move back. Theism is the basis of rationality. There is no rationality outside of it. There just isn't. It's the foundation of rational structures. And how is it that in this world, Christians can have gotten the label and have it stick of being the irrational ones? I can't fathom it. I mean, I'm trying to challenge it, but I don't seem to get much help from from anyone else. It's like the Christian atheist was, that's kind of why we did it. And it's okay. It's getting some attention, but it hasn't taken off. It's not really going anywhere. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not frustrated about it, but I guess sometimes I get a little frustrated about it. Jenny keeps me online and keeps me level with it all. But like you, when we contacted you, the excitement that you have with this is so evident. And I feel that, and Jenny feels that, and we're constantly looking for more, and trying to find it. She's on a mission right now to find it. I mean, I'm still kind of stuck in the philosophical, but that's my training. So I'm kind of a one route guy, but I love everything else feeding into that.
It's just amazing how much the Bible has opened up.
Oh yeah. For both of us. I didn't know
this was in here because I didn't learn that.
I am so excited every time we read the Bible together, and the things that she brings that illuminate it for me in a way that I never saw it before. And even things that I get wrong. I mean, just completely 180 degrees wrong because of the way I think about it. And the complementarity, the male-female complementarity is just unbelievable. So we just put out a book.
like Seasons of Life. I'll read something now that I read, and it's not like it wasn't valuable to me
Right.
20 years ago or whatever. But I read it again now, and it hits me so differently, and I see a whole different side of it, and I'm like, oh, isn't that amazing? Which is, again, like if we go back to one of your first questions, like how is this? What struck you about the Bible? That's one of the things that continues to strike me about the Bible. I could read the Communist Manifesto 20 times, and it's going to read the same every time. I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's like 15 pages. I've read it a million. I'm an econ teacher, obviously. I know this book. I don't think I'm going to discover anything new in that book that I haven't already read. But I know if I open my Bible right now, that there will be something new for me.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And it's not that long of a book, actually. It's not that it's overwhelming in its volume. It's a fairly contained set of books. And yet the whole book, it's just astounding, the interconnections between from the start to the finish. And I'm sorry. I get so excited about it. And to see someone else as excited as we are is just a super treat. So you have been a blessing in so many ways that you and Claire and your husband. We didn't really meet your husband or really talk to him much.
He just brought a chicken.
Yeah, he just brought the chicken.
No, and he's not a talker. Mike Thomas is full of knowledge and full of wisdom and full of lots of things, but not a talker. Yeah.
What does he do?
I contemplated. He's if you ask him, he'll say he's a mechanic. He probably hasn't turned wrenches in 10 or 15 years, but he works in an office now. Kind of like a family business that has a lot of different facets, and he's managing lots of them.
And what does he do when you start talking numbers?
Oh, he finds it fascinating.
Does he?
Yeah.
Is he a math person?
Not really.
Okay.
But he appreciates that I am.
Yeah.
And he's heard me, like, once I start talking about 3s and the 5s and the 8s or something, he's like, oh yeah, Fibonacci numbers. He's heard me say the things enough times, and he's like, oh, I bet that's Fibonacci, or nope, that one's square, or
that's like with John. I say, but that's Hegel.
There you go.
Well, this has been an immense amount of fun. We appreciate so much you're taking time to speak with us. Give our best to Claire. She has a really, really bright future. Yeah. Just to tell our listeners, one of the last things we did with Claire was take pictures of her while she was writing the equations of special relativity on a piece of paper.
On a board. Well, yeah, it was paper. It was paper. Yeah.
So, and it's one of her favorite books, you say. Right, special relativity. Yeah, for a graduating senior, I bet she's one of one in the entire country.
She has her own very niche group of friends from all over, people that she can communicate with, and unsurprisingly, many of whom are people of great faith because of their profound intelligence. So
that's fantastic.
I'll take it.
So, what are you going to do? What's your future?
What's your future?
No, your future. You're teaching now, and you said maybe are you thinking about getting your PhD or?
I don't know. I struggle with this question a lot. I'm not sure if me getting my PhD right now would be me. I don't know if that's an idol. I don't know if that's something that I would go after just because I want that thing. But I also really, really want to keep studying mathematics at an interesting point career-wise. Might have a career, not a huge career change. I believe that my future is in Christian education, whether it's going to be in an administrative role or still in the classroom. I'm kind of in the middle of a lot of things right now. But I feel God's call in my life to work with students, especially teens and young adults, to work with people at that age, either directly or indirectly in an administrative role, but to be the voice of smart Christians, for lack of a better phrase on it, to be that outward, hey friends, look, you can be super intelligent and super knowledgeable and still believe that the Bible is 100% true and infallible. Those two things are not only not incompatible, they're actually like super, like they support each other.
Right. Right. Okay. And then, I was thinking with what Dr. Kurt Wise said. He said that we'll never be able to reach the knowledge of God. It's always an asymptote. But we'll spend eternity, going, because it just keeps going forever. There's so much. There's just so much. And he was saying about that with God's word too, right? He said it's like an asymptote where you just will just keep going and going and never reach fulfillment. Complete fulfillment, because you're always going to be unsatisfied because you want more.
Right. No matter how far you go. And this is why I think about Jesus walking on the earth sometimes. And I mean, he could have just like dropped Newton's laws of motion
Right.
and been like, hey guys, this isn't 100% right, but here's some classical physics for you. It's going to make your life a lot easier. He didn't do that, right? He could have
Right.
told us, he could have shown us what cells were, or germs, or DNA, or
Right.
any, like, I don't know, plant husbandry. There's so many things that Jesus, he's God, he knew it all.
Right.
And while he was on this earth, he could have told us any of those things, and he didn't. And
Right.
it's not because he was withholding knowledge from anybody, it's because his purpose was not for us to just know things to know them.
Right.
The purpose hasn't ever been for us to know things because knowledge is the goal. It's to know
Right.
who he
Yeah, well,
is.
he was the way to bring us to God, so that then
Yeah.
we can go forward in knowledge,
Right.
and to know, and that knowledge would be in
Right.
God, and to seek him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
And that's
even
like
in 30 years,
incredible.
yeah, he couldn't have told us all of the things
Yeah.
in 30 years. He couldn't have told us all of the things in 2,000 years, in
Right.
5,000 years, whatever. Like, all of the things are unattainable. But the important thing, like, what is the way? I am the way.
Mm-hmm.
Get there first. And
Right.
then,
Person. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Start at the beginning, and then you go from there, and it's incredible. Yeah. All right, John.
Okay. Well, stay in touch.
We'll let you have we'll let you have lunch. But I do what I if you have any documents or anything I can start reading, just I'd love to have links to them. You say you have it on Google Docs.
Or I have a lot of Google files, whether they're
Okay.
videos or slideshows or whatever. Yeah, I'll put that on my to-do list for today. Just send you some things.
Yeah. Especially reading material. I love reading material.
Yeah, we would love. I mean,
Okay.
if possible, and if
Video's
you're on
fine,
board,
too,
maybe
yeah.
we could sort of promote them, give people some resources to go to, because this is what we need to do. We
Yeah.
need Christians to start saying, "Look, we should be pursuing God in these ways, because that's where the glory of God shows." Right?
Yeah.
Just preaching a salvation message is good. We want to bring people in, but once they're in, what are they going to do? They need to
Yeah.
pursue God.
Yeah.
And this is the way we pursue God.
We were reading.
For us, right? We're all unique.
Yeah.
So for many people, there are other ways, the singing, the whatever. We can pursue God, but let's not neglect those who want to exercise an academic pursuit, I guess.
We need to, by pursuing God in this way, retake the halls of academia for what they used to claim they were seeking, truth.
Yeah.
Because God's truth is all God's truth. Every truth is God's truth. And we need to be pursuing that, because in pursuing that, we're pursuing God. And that will ultimately bring more people in to faith if we can retake the culture. And, I don't know if we're close to the end times and that's going to all fall apart, but I do think that is what God has called us to. Certainly for Jenny and I, in what we've done, that seems to be the direction he keeps pulling us.
Yeah. We were reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe again. And, the death of Aslan, it's always associated with Jesus' resurrection. It's always put into the salvation. But this time when we read it, we were like, the death of Aslan is like the death of God, or what they hope is the death of God. And they bind him up. They put all these cords on him. They all become convoluted. And you have all of these words out in the world right now. And
I call it hyper-rational.
they're trying to bring God down to earth, trying to tie him up on this table. And then, then he dies. Aslan dies. And then all of a sudden, if you remember in the story, little mice start coming out. And at first they're horrified. These little mice are crawling over, but every mouse is chewing through the cords. And the cords are so tight, and so convoluted, the girls can't rip them off or anything. So the mice are the ones that start the chewing process. And that's what we were saying. We're like little mice, in our little areas, chewing on the cords, trying to unleash him. And when Aslan's unleashed, if you remember, he takes them for like an incredible ride. They're like terrified at one point, and then they're excited, and then he rolls with them on the ground, and he does plays with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like when we read it like that, it was like, wow, that's what needs to happen now. Yeah, we need to take the cords off of God. It's not so much the resurrection as it is we've tied him down. We've tried to. I mean, we can't, because the whole time that C.S. Lewis is talking about Aslan being tied down, the girls keep saying he could at any time he could have with one hit of his paw, but he allowed them to tie him down. So it helped us to. We actually did an episode of No Compromise on that whole thing. That it helped us to see things a lot differently. Yeah, because I was always told that had to do with the resurrection of Jesus.
Yeah.
And it does in a way. It does.
It can have multiple
Yeah,
manifestations.
right.
Yeah,
Multiple,
exactly.
yeah,
But it was exciting to see that, and then he goes off and he goes to the witch's castle and he starts to blow on all of those.
That's right. Set free
all
the
of those
frozen
who were
statues.
frozen, and the statues are like government, the different
All the things in culture
different
that have been
institutions
frozen and taken over.
right, and they all come back, and they're all like, some of them are funny, some of them are, yeah. So it was just really interesting, and it started making us think something's going on right now. We need to do
I think something
but
is
I don't
going
know.
on.
I don't know how.
I think culturally, I'm seeing. I don't know if you follow like Jordan Peterson and things like that. There seems to be a turn back to the notion that we've gone seriously wrong, and we need to, like, is it Jeremiah? Go back to the ancient road.
Yeah.
It's Jeremiah 6:16.
6:16. I
think it's 6:16. Yeah. Go back to the ancient road, because that's where the truth is, and that's where we went wrong. We went off the road. We're going the wrong direction, and the only way to turn around is for God's people to say, we're done. Yeah. It's time that we start doing what God has called us to. Forget everything else. All of these tendrils from the world coming in and corrupting the church and taking it away and telling us that,
convoluting everybody.
The
minds.
cords that are tying people's minds. Sorry, so we've done more talking here at the end.
We're talking and you're just sitting.
This is fascinating. I've thoroughly enjoyed hearing from you guys, and yeah, it's great to find like-minded people, especially as you pointed out, like we feel like stars in the night sky, right? Mm-hmm. The joke is you can't badmouth community in a Mennonite school or get struck by lightning. They're all about community, right? We are, the body of believers on this earth is a community. We definitely are, but we're also, God has placed us where we are. And that's not always in a group of like-minded people. We are influencing our own pockets where we are, and that's the idea of fractals as well. Like, you can be a space-filling curve and still only be one-dimensional. You can have a very finite, limited scope, but still fill the space if we do it the right way, if that makes any sense. Yeah. I'm trying to a little bit. But yeah, it's always fun to meet people who have seen what you have seen and thought that you were alone in seeing.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm looking forward to reading your stuff.
Yep, me too.
Making sure you send it.
Yeah, doesn't let you down. Yeah.
No, it won't. I know
there's no chance of that.
There's no chance.
Just because just talking with you has been like invigorating, and we don't have many invigorating conversations outside of the two of us. So thanks to God for bringing us together through that weird circumstance where you lost your photographer.
I am a Christian, with the searching and skeptical mind of an atheist. I don't want to believe anything that isn't true. I know both sides of the looking glass, and I know them with open eyes. I choose Christ's side. I invite you to join me from wherever you stand before the looking glass. That's this week's episode. Thanks for listening, and remember, you can have your religious cake and eat it too. You can have reason, respect for science, a 21st century worldview, and be a Christian.